Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the Rookies podcast. I am Lewicki, and joined as always by Olivia, Sala, and Tristan Tahta. Today, our topic is all about coaching beyond the boards, and we have two excellent guests to give their insights on this topic and a little bit about hockey, coaching, daily routines, and how COVID has impacted it all. So first off, we have Spiros Anastas, who is the head coach of the Brampton Beast Hockey Club. Second, we have a familiar face, Mckenzie Holden, who you may remember from our earlier sponsorship roundtable discussion. Mckenzie is currently one of our account executives with our fall intern program here at Cosmos Sports and Entertainment. So welcome both of you to the Rookies podcast, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. And without any further ado, let's get into today's episode. So these past couple months have been a whirlwind roller coaster for everybody with the up and downs of COVID. And it's been a unique set of challenges that no workforce or sports team has ever faced before. And I was wondering if I could get both of your opinions sort of on how the COVID pandemic has affected overall team morale, both in the sense of hockey and being in a workplace.
Well, I can start us off. Obviously, it's definitely unprecedented times for everybody, staff, coaches, players alike. And I think the biggest thing in terms of team morale, it has been really, quite frankly, a roller coaster, because there's been times where it's been rock bottom and you don't think you can get any lower. And there's times where there's glimmers of hope and you start to skyrocket in your feelings and your excitement and morale and possibilities. And then it seems to crash again. So it's a lot of up and down, especially going as far back as March 16th, right until, November 12th or whatever it was that we made that announcement. It's been tough for our players. So, the biggest thing about it is just keep constant communication and transparency and continue those relationships with the players, at least from a coach's perspective, to keep them as level as possible. But it's definitely caused a lot of anxiety and ranges of emotions, because there's some weeks where there's exciting news like rapid testing and vaccines. And then there's the next week where, well, we can't cross the border, so that really doesn't matter. And, there's glimmers of hope in the summer, and then the weather gets colder, and then it looks like it's going to be gloom and doom for a few months. So as a coach in a leadership position, it was really tough to handle that with our players this summer.
Yeah, I think my take on all this is, for us as interns and in Tristan, I think we're in a really unique position. I don't think there's ever been an internship where you've never met your supervisor face to face. And so I think, we're just kind of rolling with it right now, and all credit to Olivia, who's on the call, and Laura. They've set up those guests who submitted the song, our kind of team building activities. But it's highs and lows, and luckily the staff at Cosmos has been awesome and trying to connect every day and at least talk to someone, so you don't feel isolated just doing your work alone all day. But I definitely agree with Spiros, the ups and downs, and now coming into winter. It was so much easier to be positive in the summer when the sun wasn't setting at 4:30, but it's just how you deal with it, and when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? So.
Definitely. I know I loved both of those socials we sort of had with the full team Cosmos. Those were both great. And continuing on with that, everyone here is we've had to move to the world of basically working remotely. And it's a very different atmosphere than what we're used to in either traditional sports, going into the rink every day, being with the team, or for interns, getting to directly talk to your supervisors and be there in the office face to face. I was wondering if you two could both sort of speak how you found working in a pandemic and that switch to working remotely compared to what we've been used to for our entire lives.
It's definitely different. I mean, you really got to rely, in my job capacity through the off season when I was recruiting players and just trying to network as much as I can, really got to rely on obviously verbal communication and my ability to sell without showing people things, showing our locker room, showing our facility, just meeting someone in person. So that really stretched my skill set, I guess, in how I can speak and communicate. But also it really brought up new opportunities. Obviously, I've been really focused my entire career of continuing education and learning as much as I can and going to coaches seminars and meeting people. But typically that's always been in person. Those Hockey Canada Conference, NHL Coaches Association platforms have always been in person. Well, now with the online capabilities and with the pandemic, there's been so many avenues for education, again, starting in the spring right through to now, where there's almost more options, whether it's coaches mentorship program through the NHL or the NHL Global Coaches Association conference, or Hockey Canada availability. The Toronto Maple Leafs did one last week. it seems like it's ongoing now, and that's because of the online capabilities. And I think that's always been there, but obviously now we've been forced to recognize that there's so many more ways to connect than in person. I still prefer in person, but it's definitely stretched me to learn how to communicate through these different platforms and also learn through them as well. So, it's tough, but I think at the end of it, we'll all come up better because we've probably gained new tools and capabilities with what we've been forced to do.
Yeah, I think I touched on it a bit before, but I think it's really crucial that, you have that constant verbal communication. And I don't know if he still thinks it's a good idea, but Jordan, my supervisor, gave me his phone number just to text or call him if I had any questions throughout the day. And so definitely been taking advantage of that. I think another interesting aspect of it is, I know you're working from home, Tristan, I'm not sure about you, but I am as well. And so I actually had to book our office for this call today because both my mom and my stepdad had a call. So my stepdad's in my brother's room who's off at school, my mom's in the dining room, and I'm in like our office space. So it's just those like things you maybe wouldn't think of when you think of working remotely. But for me, that's a big thing, is where is everyone going to work that day and who needs what space.
Working from home has definitely been a change for everyone, even for us here at the Rookies podcast. We've had to film a podcast through Zoom, which is no easy task, as we learned with our first episode and any technical difficulties. So it's definitely been a learning curve for everyone involved, and it's really seen a change in our day-to-day routines on all levels. And more directed at you, Spiros, like coaching is so much of it is hands-on, you're with players every day. How has this pandemic changed your daily routine as a coach and sort of the way you communicate with your players during COVID and your coaching staff during all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tested us, and I think this is going to be a test for everybody, players and coaches alike, whether they play this season or not. It's going to really test them on how prepared they can be and how much they want it. So for me, when we believed we were playing, it was just constant communication as much as possible with the players, just checking in on them, seeing how they were getting prepared. Their workout phases got changed a little bit because of the pushback start, seeing what they were doing to kind of stay above water financially, but also to stay on top of their game. For a few of our players, we did some video analysis. They wanted to watch the video themselves. So it really forced us to go back and watch our games and pinpoint some things where some of our guys get better at. And also between Duncan and I as a staff, like I mentioned before, the educational opportunities that we logged on to learn from some of the best coaches in the world, but also going about it ourselves, like looking into NHL games and video and watching NHL playoffs through the summer and finding little things that we can take and put into our own methods. So that's kind of what we've been focusing on, but it has been very difficult because you can't really step on the ice with the players. There were points in the summer and, early in the fall where you can get on with a handful of guys up to about 15 guys at one point, but now it's back down to like 5 to 8. That's really difficult, but there's also league rules where you can't step on the ice with guys before the season starts. So it was all communication, really. That's all it is. And thankfully, Duncan and I have really good relationships with our players, and that's what we pride ourselves on as a staff and organization. So, we believe in relationships and communication and transparency first before X's and O's. So we just felt that the number one priority is making our guys as cared about as possible. And sometimes it was tough because obviously the centralized, focus point for all these guys all summer is, are we going to play? And sometimes we didn't have any information for them. So we probably weren't communicating as much as we'd like to because it always kind of reverted back to that and we didn't have any information. So it's really tested us a lot. But me personally, I haven't been able to get on the ice as much as I'd like. So it's just keeping my brain sharp. And it's not always education platforms where there's somebody presenting and I'm learning. The one great thing about this time is I've joined a few just networking groups where it's more peer-to-peer communication. And we get together on Monday nights at 7:00, let's say, and we just talk hockey. So that's kind of really been how I've hit this head on is just keeping the conversation going about hockey so I can be sharp when it's time to step on the ice again.
So sort of along the lines to continue on that, you mentioned one of the struggles is you're not actually able to get on the ice with these guys and be there and work with them. And during this pandemic, there have been numerous guys that have either retired or no longer playing, and it's some of the core leadership there at the Brampton Beast. So how do you go about sort of adapting to these new changes in leadership when you can't really be on the ice with these guys and transitioning a new leadership team in for the Beast?
Yeah, I mean, part of our job as a coaching staff in the ECHL, you do a lot more than what coaches at higher levels or different levels do. So we have to build the team. So we're pretty much, scouts, we're, hockey managers or director of hockey operations, whatever our titles might be at whatever organization we work for in this league. But we have to kind of put the team together. So, it makes it difficult because we can't get on the ice. We can't see guys play. So we have to go through video a lot. And when a pandemic hit, and you lose anywhere from 4 to 6 guys through retirement, a couple were expected, but others were surprises, but surprises, not much of a surprise as the pandemic went on. But in any given year, there were a couple guys that likely would have played, but the pandemic kind of forced them into retirement. So what you have to do as a scout, and I've heard this from some really great scouts at the highest levels, is, yeah, you can use your eyes, but the best scouts use their ears. So we were really forced to do as much homework as we can on players to replace these leaders that we lost and these impact players as we lost. So yeah, we could watch video on them and see and look at their stats and see with our eyes what they can do. But it was the due diligence in terms of calling people that played with them, played against them, coach against them, maybe taught them in school, as many people as we can find to find out the information on these potential replacements. Because when you lose guys like Jordan Henry, David Valorani, David Pecan, like they are the core of what it means to be a Brampton Beast, especially over the last couple of years with Colin Chalk's final season as a head coach and my first season as a head coach. Like those are probably 2 of the better years of Brampton Beast history. And you could just see the upward trajectory of where the organization was going. Well, you lose that core, you got to do your due diligence on the players you're going to replace them with. And thankfully, we hit on a lot of contacts that we had, a lot of resources we had, and we were very confident that the types of guys that we brought in. And Luke Pither was an easy one. He played for the team previously, so there was a lot of information on him. But guys like Jared Gomes, guys like Tommy Hughes, those are some big pickups. But even rookies like Derek Topicage, a captain at Princeton University, to get as much information on those people and what they can bring was extremely important in this environment where we couldn't go and meet them in person or see their games live. So it was a lot about using your ears, and we had to do that, but it took a little extra work.
I think that's some great insight about sort of the level and what you have to do as a coach there that I think a lot of people don't know about. So that's some really great insight there. And building off sort of like the coaching and all the different hats you wear as a coach there. And I know earlier you mentioned your assistant coach, Duncan. I wonder if you could sort of just touch on the dynamics between the two of you of coaches and sort of how your coaching styles differ, how they're the same, and how really you've blended them together to find an optimal coaching style for peak performance.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan is he's quite a character, and I can confidently say he's probably become my best friend in the game. And that's not always the case when you work with people, whether you're an assistant or you're a head coach or head coach to general manager. That's not always the case, but I'm really fortunate to have somebody like him. And he's somebody that I held over. Like he started halfway through the previous season before my arrival, and he was a contact with Colin Chalk. And when I met him before I took the job, we just kind of clicked right away. But we definitely are very different in a lot of ways, but I think our path ends up in the same ending point. And I think that's what's important. We have the same visions to where we want to get, but we kind of take different pathways to get there. And I think that's critical because I can't have somebody that just agrees with every turn that I make during the season. And he's an awesome checks and balance for me. And I learned so much from him because of his playing experience. He's a little bit older than me, so he's been around the game a lot longer, and he's coached at levels that I've never coached before. I've never coached U14s and U15s and guys that are getting drafted in the OHL. So he brings a little bit of a different mindset to me, and he's lived it because he's been in those skates per se. So, we're different in a lot of ways. He definitely has a lot more energy and a lot more vocal on the bench than I am in terms of a little bit rah-rah or a few more F-bombs than me. But we balance each other out, and we definitely check each other. When one of us gets fired up about a player's poor performance, the other guy usually talks one guy down, and we always bring different ideas to the table. But what's great is we always can come to a mutual agreement when we walk out of the coach's room door. we're on the same page. But he's awesome. And the most important part, which I preach this to players as well at any level, he and I have a lot of fun together. We love going on the road. We love being on the bus. We love complaining, but the complaining always turns into a fun complaint. And then obviously we have our third wheel, Anthony Fusco, that comes around with us too. And he always gets the brunt of Duncan and I's good and bad moods. But I'm very fortunate to work with Duncan. He's an incredible coach and more importantly, a really great friend.
That's great to hear. You love hearing that about teams and how much leadership you love to work with. The people you work with, you enjoy. It makes work that much more fun. So it's really great to hear that. And you mentioned that he was over from the previous staff, but before the Brampton Beast, I know that you actually coached down in South Carolina with the Stingrays there. And hockey's Canada's game. It's everywhere up here, and it's a little bit of a different atmosphere maybe down in South Carolina compared to some of the other big sports down there. So I was wondering if you could sort of talk about the difference of coaching down in South Carolina versus up here at the Beast, both in sort of like how fans are, players, coaching, and sort of like the business perspective, even how hockey is compared to South Carolina versus up here in Brampton.
Yeah, it was really different. Obviously, not a lot of people knew as much about the game as fans, not just in Brampton, but just if you compare the North Division to the South Division, it's just truer hockey markets. So that naturally just brings a different game as well. I'd say the North Division is closer to truer hockey, faster hockey, more skilled hockey, and fast-paced hockey, because you're talking about demographics and Portland, Maine, and Glens Falls, New York, Reading, Pennsylvania, Worcester, Massachusetts, and obviously St. John's, Newfoundland. It just seems like the markets there are more educated in hockey and want to see a finer product on the ice. Where down south, they still kind of sell it as a rough and tumble game and just a bunch of crazy, farm boys from Canada and Northeastern American boys or Minnesota boys just kind of duking it out. So it was really interesting in that set of things. Also, it was interesting when I first got there, our whole first month and a half was on the road. And I asked, I was like, why don't we have any home games, in October, November? And they're like, well, we got to wait till the college football season's over because we don't have any fans. So that was an interesting point because we definitely took a backseat to college football. But once we got going, it was interesting, the pressure on our team to be really physical, be really tough. And that's what they view really good teams to be. We had won a game against Jacksonville one night. It was like 3-1, 4-1. I thought it was a fantastic hockey game. I believe it was 3-1 with an empty netter. So it was really tight. I think it was our fourth or fifth win in a row. And we got booed off the ice. And I couldn't figure it out. But we got booed off the ice because they didn't like our brand of hockey. We hadn't had a home fight in 6 or 7 games. They thought our team was soft. Jacksonville was a real tough team. So although we won the game, they beat us up pretty well that night. I might have had a couple guys injured. So the fans didn't like that we didn't have anyone to kind of answer the bell. And at the Christmas break, I went out and got probably the toughest player I've ever coached in Josh Gratton. If you just Google this guy and look at his face, you'll understand who he is. He actually was just on the Spit and Chicklets podcast like 2 days ago. He fought in the NHL. He's fought every big name fighter you could think of. And I went out and got him, and it was the most celebrated moment of the season that I got Josh Gratton. And it definitely helped our fan base, and it helped our team performance because that's what the South was like. So it was definitely a different animal coaching in South Carolina than it was here. But it was a good experience because it expanded my horizons of expectations a little bit. But I do prefer the hockey in the North than I do down there for sure.
It's hockey. It's the great game of hockey, and everyone loves it. It's interesting to hear the different versions of what people look for in hockey. It's definitely interesting. I'm used to the Canadian version of here. That's what I grew up watching. That's what my dad taught me how to fight before anything else with hockey sticks and dropping the gloves. So I appreciate both sides of that. But also that here in Canada, we have hockey from coast to coast. No matter where you turn, there's always hockey. Whether it's a small team or an NHL team, fans and people of Canada love seeing that. But along with that, it takes a lot to run a hockey team, and they need a lot of support. And I know before the city of Brampton was a big supporter of the Beasts, and Carrie did a whole thing with all of us interns talking about the importance of local municipalities and cities supporting their local teams. I was wondering if really both of you could speak to just the importance of municipalities and cities supporting these teams and sort of what the importance really is of that support.
Go ahead, Mac.
So I think for me, especially right now during COVID, I think it's super crucial for municipalities to support sport. Like, I know, kind of different comparison, but I know before COVID hit, me and my buddies were thinking of going down to Detroit to watch a Red Wings game and a Pistons game. And I think sports brings business to local economies, and people like me and my friends will go to places just to watch sports. And without those sports happening, I think there's a correlation between no sports and maybe not as much economic activity. Like, think about it. If you're going to go to a sports thing, maybe you'll go for dinner before, you'll go to a bar and grab a drink, and or like pay a local taxi to drive you places. But so I think, especially right now during COVID, that support is so important, so that these sports teams can still stay on their feet and be ready to hit the ground running when everything does resume.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think just municipal support, it helps, especially at the higher levels and government levels as well. But as much as you can get the word out there about the team in the city or in the municipality or even in the region, like, you know, we're in Brampton, but we're so close to the rest of the Peel region and even pretty close to the Halton Hills region. So, you know, anytime you can get the word out there and get people involved, it really helps. And it brings opportunity, not just for the city and the municipality and the region, but just for people. Like, we live in a really unique demographic, and there's a lot of, you know, immigrant families or, you know, first or second generation Canadians that are really keen to assimilate themselves in the culture. And I know this because I come from that kind of family. That I'm a first generation Canadian. And when you come here, you're proud to be here. You're proud to be part of this culture. So you know, what better way to welcome people to Canada or assimilate people than teaching them about our game. And, you know, that's how my family fell in love with it. And there's so many families that we can reach to get them to fall in love with, you know, Canada's game. So I think we're in a really unique demographic where we have a lot of opportunities to reach out. So anytime you get that municipal support, you hope that it just, you know, creates a domino effect where it grows, and you can provide opportunities to young families and multi-generational families where they can learn how to skate, learn about our game, and then within our own game, expand our horizons. Like, we had Diwali nights, we had South Asian dancers and singers on our ice between periods. And not only did that provide opportunities to new hockey fans, people like my family, for instance, that came to every game, they saw things that they never saw at hockey games and they loved it. Like, my mom was talking about eating samosas between periods and seeing these dancers and the colors and fireworks. Like, it brought such a new experience to people, not only that were new to the game, but people that have been around the game for their entire lives. So we have such an opportunity to do that. So I think to recognize that it's good for our whole municipality, I think all the support we can get, and that we can be a catalyst to spread that. I think it's great. And Carrie's and, you know, the rest of Cosmos and the Brampton Beast, our ownership, are doing everything they can to keep spreading that. And, you know, hopefully it just continues to grow in years to come.
I think both of you made some really good points there about how sports are a way to connect us. It's a way to bring new cultures together, whether you're going down to an NFL game to tailgate in the States or coming together at a Beast game for all these new experiences. It really is a way to connect with people that you've never met. You become a friend to the fan that was next to you when you're cheering for the same overtime goal. And it's really a way to bond people together. But this 2020 season for all of our sports basically was like no other. And while there's a few fans, some NFL games spread out, majority of the teams and sports that played this year had to play without fans. And it really put a hit for a lot of teams in that sense. I was wondering sort of if you guys think that sports can survive with fans, if this had to keep going on like this, and if there are really any specific sports that you think could survive longer without fans than other sports.
I can go first there. I think, I don't know, to me personally, and feel free to disagree, but I don't know if it's sport specific. I think it's team specific. And as Spiros was just saying, you know, Brampton Beast has the luxury of having that really unique demographic and also trying to connect to that demographic. And I think the more loyal your fans are and the more they'll engage with you and support you, even maybe by not go, even if they weren't at the games, how those fans support you, I think is going to be really crucial. And it's going to be really interesting to see how good of a job teams have done building that connection. So now when they have to rely on it, they can really count on those fans to buy merch or maybe go to a socially distanced event that's not the sport game itself. And so I think really relying on those connections you've built with fans and having them support you through these times is going to be really important going forward. And so, yeah, just to loop back to the question, I don't think it's so much sport specific rather than what legwork the team has done in the past to position themselves right now?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways to approach that question. I think, if you go strictly financially, and we are a business, no, we can't survive without fans. And the sports that can are obviously the ones that have billionaire owners that can afford bubbles, and they have TV tracks, and obviously definitely a bigger merchandise market. In terms of, can we survive in the long term? Are we going to lose fans along the way? I think, yeah, definitely we can survive for all the reasons that Mac pointed out, but it really tests organizations to really reach out to their fan base and find different ways to interact. So, the people in the Brampton Beast front office have done an incredible job. Lauren Foss, Sam McDade, Brooklyn Fell, Anthony Fusco, and obviously overseen by Carrie Kaplan. We've had a few kind of town halls online, and we've connected with season ticket holders or stakeholders in our organization a lot more than we did when we had opportunities to do it in person. So, everything is an opportunity. You can be negative about everything, and I'm definitely not perfect. Trust me, there's days that I'm, going up the wall and hating everything that's happening. So I don't mean to sound over optimistic, because that can get pretty annoying as well. But you have to find the opportunity in negative scenarios, and I think the Beast have done that. We've communicated with our season ticket holders more than we did last year when we couldn't in person. So now, not only has that given us a different avenue to speak to them, but it also makes us recognize that when we can get back, we got to do this more often. We got to meet them in person, and we did before. I think we can do it even more. And this online platform has showed us that. On top of that, it's an old saying, but distance makes the heart, grow fonder. So, we recognize that sports brings people together. There's been numerous examples over the ages of sports, whether it's Olympics or pro sports or, people just coming together, different nations playing each other, different cities, all that. We can reach back into those memories and understand that we've missed out on that in recent times. So I think when it comes back, there'll be even more people that are wanting to be part of it. And people who may have stepped away prior to the pandemic may come back. But that's an opportunity that we have to, take advantage of. And I think we're doing our best to do that with, our open communication, the stuff we're doing on social, and the town halls that we've been having. But like Mac pointed out, you will see who's been prepared for this, for the return of fans. And it's the same thing I say to my players to kind of bring it full circle. You'll see in 21, 22, when hopefully everything's back to normal, you'll see who really wanted to be a hockey player. You'll see who really wanted to be a hockey coach. You'll see who's prepared and who didn't let this set them back. Same thing with organizations. You'll see it when fans are allowed back in the building, who's ready to welcome them back with a great product and great communication to keep them coming.
Yeah, I think both touching on the chance that there was actually opportunities to grow in connections with fans, whether it be more digital communication. I think there's been so many great opportunities through this that it's unfortunate that it had to come to this, but like you said, it is that learning curve that now we realize we weren't doing enough before, and when fans do return, definitely keeping that going, because I know I bought into all of those things teams are doing. I have my cardboard cutout from the Jay Stadium sitting in my TV room that they shipped to me that I will keep forever, known as the pandemic cutout. So I definitely do think there were some cool ways that teams definitely engaged with their fans. On a bit more of a light note around the COVID times and this extended hiatus we've sort of all had, have there been any fun hobbies or new things that you picked up during this extended hiatus we've sort of been on?
Well, yeah, there's lots of positives. I just had to go get a new driver's license photo yesterday. So for the next 6 years, is that how long a driver's license photo lasts? I'm going to remember COVID by the length of my hair. So I haven't grown my hair like this since I was in college. So that, 13, 14 years ago was so I mean, I don't know if that's a hobby, but just something I've been doing. I've been really great at chalkboard art. So we try and keep our kids as happy and looking forward to things as much as possible. So I took up chalkboard art. I took it up before the pandemic hit, but it's really ramped up. So just different holidays, just drawing things on the chalkboard, and I've actually gotten pretty good at it. So little things like that to keep some excitement in the household. Golfing. My wife is an ex-pro golfer, so she's always dragged me out to the golf course over our relationship. But this summer, whenever it opened up in mid-May, when you're allowed to go golfing, she really said, like, we're gonna get good this summer at it. And between her and my second partner, Duncan Dalmeo, who's also an exceptional golfer, I've been golfing a lot this summer. So I'd say my game got pretty good for a very poor golfer prior to the pandemic. So yeah, growing hair, chalkboard art, and golfing have been three things I've gotten better at over the course of the last few months.
I thought being good at golf was just hand in hand with being associated with hockey. Thought that was the summertime sport.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, and I don't know. My way of talking myself out of that is, if you're really good at golf and a hockey coach, that means you're not a really good coach because you're golfing longer than the others.
I think for me, I've kind of had two phases. So quarantine part one, or season one, as it's being referred to, in the summer. I picked up tennis. I was at my cottage pretty much all summer, and my friends had a tennis court. So got okay at tennis, just don't hit it to my backhand. And now part two, which we just launched, season 2 of quarantine. My family just bought a Peloton, so I'm aiming for the Tour de France in a few years, you know.
I attempted to pick up golf for how much I played. Definitely didn't get any better. It's still safer for me to drive the cart, but it's one of those games you got to practice a lot. So it's definitely some unique hobbies picked up for everyone during this time. But kind of switching directions again here, back to the whole coaching side of things and even leadership for Mac to answer. What do you think the most important quality for a coach is, both on and off the ice?
Personally, I think for me, the most important part is definitely your communication skills, and also being and in turn with the communication skills, being able to take criticism from your players. You know, if you think you have all the answers and you implement this game plan and it's just not working, you want to have that feedback from the players and be collaborative with them and to develop the best game plan that highlights their skills, highlights your use of strategy. And so I think definitely being a good communicator is key as a coach.
Yeah, it's really, to go on what Mac just said, you have to be a good communicator. And that's always been an important part of being a coach and a leader, but it's really been tested through this time more than anything. And be as transparent as possible. Be detailed and as honest as you possibly can, and provide as much information, but concisely as well. I find, and that's a challenge on the phone. Sometimes you can try and just fill a lot of time. It's awkward to talk on the phone, I believe, sometimes, right? And you're always just trying to fill the gaps, and sometimes you just kind of go on these tangents that don't make any sense. It's really forced coaches and leaders to be as concise as possible and give as much information and to be clear cut. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then the second one is just caring. Like, everyone needs to be cared about all the time, but especially during this time. Like, we're all going through different emotions. There's some people that battle mental health. There's some people that aren't sure how they're going to survive financially or put food on the table. There's some people who aren't sure if their grandmother is going to make it through this and they haven't been able to see them. So honestly, like, just teaching me to just ask simple questions like, hey, how you doing? And how's your family doing? I think that's such an important thing to do when you're a leader or when you're a coach, because really nobody cares, how much you know about a game in these situations. They care about how much you care about them. And, and then when it comes time to talk about hockey, they'll be more apt to listen to you and trust you because you've trusted and cared about them through these tough times. So I think that's a real important factor for being a great leader during this pandemic.
I definitely think you both made some really good points there. And I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to be a coach or a leader and how much actually goes into it. And there's a lot more behind the scenes that people don't realize what it really takes to be a good leader or a good coach. And continuing on sort of the coach trend there, like we've talked about throughout this entire podcast, COVID has kind of really changed what it means and how to coach during this time. But for you, Spiros, what's the biggest thing you've sort of had to overcome as a coach during this COVID time?
It's just like my own personal frustration and not letting that project onto others. Again, like, and maybe I should be more like some people, but you see other podcasts and you hear other interviews and everyone's just all holly jolly, like positivity. And I do that too. Like, I try and flip the negative into a positive as much as I can, but I think it's naive to, and true, not very transparent to say that we don't all face hard times. And there's been days that I'm just in a terrible mood and I'm not feeling it. And, woe is me. And I had a professor in school that would tell me that it's okay to visit Pityville. It really is okay. A lot of people try and tell you to not go there, but it's okay to visit Pityville, but just don't break ground and build foundation there. And that's what he used to say. Like, make your trips short and you see what it's like to be there for a little bit, but then turn yourself around and get the heck out. So that's been the biggest roadblock, I guess, that I've had to overcome as a coach, because when you're a leader, when you're a guy that people want to talk to or look up to, your feelings and how you're feeling project on others. So that's just been the biggest thing for me. But in a weird way, letting others know that I'm feeling that way, because then it opens them up to tell you how they're feeling. And then together we can get to a positive and end a phone conversation or a Zoom call on our next steps and how we're going to get through it together. But, if you let it consume you, then it just turns into negativity. Then you're ending a phone call or a Zoom call with, man, everything just sucks. And, thanks for confirming that for me, because it sucks for you, it sucks for me. So let's just get off this call. So, getting over that hump on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week or month-to-month, that's been a challenge, and it's really pushed me to, overcome those demons a little bit. And we all face them. And I think the first step is recognizing that you face them. And the second step is communicating with others and helping to get each other through it. So that's been the biggest challenge for me, without a doubt.
I think if I can just jump in, and I think that's really fitting. We've just reached the end of November, and November has evolved from prostate cancer now to men's mental health and encompass all that. And just saying what you said, and it's okay to talk to people, and everyone's down in the dumps right now. And you just want to find that support network and to reach out to people. So I thought that was a perfectly timed answer moving into December here.
And even I was going to say that really, I think, speaks your answer to the overall atmosphere of the Brampton Beast, because when we had Eric on a few weeks ago on Tristan's episode, even he talked about sort of staying in touch with people, checking in, just making sure people are okay and actually talking to people. And I think that's great to hear both from a player and from a coach, to see that you guys are in line with that and that it's really happening, and that's what's happening within the Brampton Beast team. So I really like hearing that sort of synergy between leadership and players there. But sort of for my last question here, before I pass it over to either Mckenzie or Tristan for anything they want to ask, it's just, there's been a lot of ups and downs with the ECHL this year, with the border closing, people are going to play, delayed start times. It's been a whirlwind of emotions for everyone. And it's just sort of wondering to get your thoughts on what you think the future of the ECHL is looking like right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one to predict for the 2021 season. I know that there's teams slated to start in about a week or so. And, there's still a lot up in the air. I know there's teams that have confirmed that they're going to start, but, those decisions happened months ago. And at that time, those spots weren't hot spots. I just saw on the news yesterday that South Dakota is the hottest spot in the world right now in terms of, per capita cases and the growth of the virus. Well, back in August, Rapid City, which is located in the Dakotas, was saying that we can start in October. So it just, the teams that have committed to play, it seems like the virus is catching on over there now more than it was up here. So I don't know what the immediate future looks like for the 2021 season. I think there's going to be stoppages. There's going to be more teams that back out. There's going to be some major challenges for how do we stay healthy with bus travel and plane travel to different places. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's tumultuous at best for 2021. But I do believe that the future of the league is in great hands. The leadership in our league, Ryan Creelan, Joe Ernst, Dan Petrino, Joe Babick, whoever else is out there, and all the presidents and our governors, they're doing everything they can to make sure that the growth and the credibility of this league continues on an upward trajectory. I don't think anybody can be judged on what happens in 2021. Leagues, teams, coaches, players, whether they play or not, I don't think anyone can be judged on it. So they're taking this head on, and they know that there's going to be some roadblocks and some setbacks. But the league in itself, it's growing. There's some expansion possibilities that have been announced already with Three Rivers and Iowa, and I know that there's more. They're doing a fantastic job with the affiliations with the NHL. The product and the quality of the hockey is increasing. So we'll bounce back from this without a doubt. If anything, it's made us united. We have these little rivalries with each other between organizations and presidents and GMs and coaches. If anything, I've mended some of those with guys that those guys that I've gone in arguments with across the benches, or I've always thought to myself, like, man, I just love beating that guy because I can't stand him. We've been forced to communicate a lot more through text groups and Zoom calls. So if anything, it's just going to make us stronger in the future. And I would say that the league is just going to continue to grow. We just got to get through this rough patch right now.
I'm all for seeing that growth once that's all done, and best of luck when it does come getting back on the ice. But those are all the questions that I personally had, so I'm going to throw it over to either Mckenzie, Olivia, or Tristan if you guys have anything you want to ask.
Yeah, I think I have one. We just talked about the future of the ECHL, and we've kind of talked about the unique game day ops that Brampton Beast put on. But what would you say makes the ECHL and Brampton Beast unique? And then a follow-up to that is, what would you, as a coach, and I guess the many hats you are, scout, director of hockey operations, what would you tell a player that maybe didn't make the NHL, didn't quite fulfill that dream, but about playing in the ECHL or for the Beast?
Yeah, well, I think the unique thing for the Beast and what we provide for a fan experience is try and entangle ourselves in the community as much as possible. So there's a lot of face-to-face interaction with our fans, our Sunday skates, our guys signing autographs, locker room tours. I know that we have our front office is really trying to build a clinic / hockey school pathway for us, and hopefully that grows into something where we can connect with the community more. So I think at the ECHL level in all markets is the connection to the community for affordable fan entertainment, but not just to watch a hockey game, but to do more, to learn about a game, be involved, get on the ice with players, and we can make such an impact on the grassroots level of hockey. Where I know that the top levels they do stuff like that, but it's more from a funding perspective. Like the Maple Leafs fund grassroots development, and maybe one star shows up once a season to a practice. Well, we can be there more often. I think that's what's unique about our level of hockey. And we can relate to people a lot more. Like, we're not getting rich at working at this level. And so we're not anybody that anyone needs to be intimidated by, or think that our time is worth more than anyone else's. We're just average people, just trying to play a game that we love and trying to earn a living. And we can connect with our fan base a lot easier that way. We're on equal ground as everyone else, and we're just trying to make it day by day. So I think that's what's unique about the ECHL in all markets. In terms of players that end up in this league, let's face it, and I say this in jest sometimes in our locker room, especially early in the year, we are all in that room, and none of us ever expected to be there. No one grew up saying, I want to be in the ECHL. Nobody did. It's just a fact. You can laugh about it. Some people might say, oh, don't say that. Maybe after Carey sees this podcast, he's like, you can't say that. But honestly, I think he would agree with me. No one grew up saying, I can't wait to play for the Brampton Beast. It's just not a thing. And truthfully, nobody says that about the American Hockey League either. We all grow up wanting to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, the Dallas Stars, whatever region we live in. And that's always our vision. So it is, in a sense, a disappointment to end up here. And similar to how we're dealing with this pandemic, how do you deal with that? Do you look at woe is me that I'm, 2 steps away from the NHL and I feel like I should be higher? Or do you look at it as an opportunity to get more playing time, an opportunity to play alongside guys who are on AHL or NHL contracts, knowing that there's going to be scouts, general managers, and coaches in the stands to watch those guys? So what can I do to shine? What can I do to grasp that attention? What can I do to be available on an ECHL contract? I'm available to 31 American Hockey League teams. So there is a positive to that as well. Because, a guy like Nathan Todd, for instance, he got called up to the Belleville Senators, got sent back down, and the next week he's called up to the Manitoba Moose, where if you're on an AHL contract, you're property of just one team. So if they don't want to call you up, you're not getting called up. Where if you're on an ECHL contract, any one of 31 teams can call you up. So then your performance becomes a lot more critical at that point. So there's lots of opportunities, lots of positives of playing this league. We provide a unique niche on top of those opportunities, and the fact that we have such a pool of players that are from the GTA. So you look at our roster, we have 90% guys are from here. So they get to play in front of their families. They can get to live at home. younger guys live with their parents or their brothers and their sisters. Older guys, they build roots here and buy homes and, are able to get some of their mortgage paid through, the collective bargaining agreement, because we have to provide money for housing. So there's lots of opportunities for guys to play for the Brampton Beast and the ECHL that can, further their career, but also make it a comfortable living for them while playing a high level of hockey. So, we try and flip that negative of, man, I got a long ways to go to reach my goals, to a positive in them seeing the avenues that they can take as long as they're ready and they perform well.
I have another one really quick, just off of that. As a coach, how do you develop a team culture that, if there is a scout in the stands, that one guy that's maybe that close to maybe making it to the AHL or, and sees that path for themselves, how do you create a culture that it's about the team and not about putting on like a 5-goal, 4-assist performance that night?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest responsibilities and challenges for coaches at this level. And Duncan and I have always approached it as, making it about how we do things here, and you have a core group of players. And we talked about veterans and leadership earlier in this podcast, but those are the guys that help you the most. So when you have a Jordan Henry, a David Pecan, David Valerani, later in the season last year, like Anthony Nigro, when you got a handful of those guys and you mix in some younger leaders like Matt Petgrave, Chris Martinet, who have ambitions to continue going, but those guys are the pulse of your room. So you make them understand what it means to be a Brampton Beast and how we do things here. So then everyone else that comes in and out has to answer to them, not just to Duncan and I. They have to answer to them, because those guys aren't likely moving. They're not going up. They're finishing their careers here. They're the Brampton Beast. So they want to win championships. They want to play the best they can. They want to win games. They want to perform in front of their families and their friends. And they want to get raises on their contract next year. They want to play for the Beast, but they want to be able to approach Kerry Kaplan, Spiros Anastas, and Duncan Dalmeo and say, hey, I think I earned an extra $50, $60, $70, $100 a week because of my performance. So there's a lot at stake for those guys. So when you can build that core to make it about this is how we do things here, then anyone who comes up or down knows that they got to answer to those guys. And that's how you build that culture, because you want to win it for them. And some of those guys have been close to championships, have never won them. Some of those guys like David Valerani won a championship in their rookie season and they want to taste that again. So it's all about winning it for each other. And once you get to that point, then it just pulses itself in your room. But that's why it's so critical. Going back to Anne's one of earlier questions, you lose those guys. How do you replace that with people that can build that culture in your room? So that's kind of what we tried to accomplish. And no matter who came down, whether they were on an NHL contract or AHL contract, we didn't care. We'll develop you to get back up. But while you're here, you do it our way. And thankfully, we had some really good guys that bought into that. When you talk about Joey Decord, Francois Beauchemin, Alex Dubois, Trent Bork early in the season, those are all guys that were on contracts higher than ECHL contracts. But they came and they performed and they were here because they really respected our core leadership group. So, that's the first step in doing it, is having the right people with you.
For anyone who is looking for an internship with the Beast or Cosmos, you can visit our websites at cosmosports.com or bramptonbeast.com. You can also get in touch with me directly at osala@cosmosports.com or Michael Hunter at mbhunter@cosmosports.com. And if you're looking for an internship with the Beast, you can get in contact with Anthony Fusco at afusco@bramptonbeast.com. But that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much to Mckenzie Holden and Spiros Anastas for being on today's episode. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit with us today. And all the best for the holiday season to you and your families. Stay safe, stay healthy, and just thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.